Assalamu alaikum. मेरा नाम Arif Mansuri है and I'm the host of the Mansuri SHow, the show that is best described as मिलाऊंगा, बताऊंगा, दिखाऊंगा. Your link to everything Pakistani straight from California, the Mansuri SHow. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a very special guest with us today, Nicole Majdali, who is a native Californian. She's an award-winning film producer, a stand-up comedian, actress, and writer, member of SAG, which is the Screen Actors Guild, actress in Hollywood, and has worked in movie and television, and of course, a very well-known stand-up comedian. So first of all, Nicole, I would like to welcome you.
Thank you.
Well, you have a really very interesting story. Being in the Hollywood, being in the movies and television and stand-up comedy, you accepted Islam.
Yes,
and
I
you
did.
converted and have been, practicing Islam for quite some time.
Yes.
And that's a very fascinating story. And we would like to ask you about why you converted and what your experience has been after you converted to Islam, being in the media, being in the movies and television. So that is very, interesting part of your story. But you have a lot of very interesting experiences that you have had. So, I would like to begin with your professional career first, and would like to ask you what brought you to the comedy.
Oh, okay. Yes, I am an actor, filmmaker, mainly an actor. And a friend of mine, he's a very well-known author, wrote a part for me in a film, a Hallmark film, I believe it was. Wrote it. It was mine. And I was living in Michigan at the time, and I went to the audition, and I did not realize the director from Hollywood, who has done some of my favorite work, was in the room, and I choked. And I got so nervous because I didn't have enough experience in Michigan. And I probably embarrassed my friends, and it just didn't go well. And I didn't get the part that was written for me. So I just thought to myself, this can never happen again. I need to do something. And there was a stand-up comedy class, and that terrified me. So I thought if I could do that, that's scary, I'll be okay in the future. Maybe it'll cure my nerves. And I took the class. Even on the phone, the woman said, you don't have to do the show. You don't have to, because she could tell I was terrified to do this comedy class and then do a show. Stand-up is not easy, and it's not something, they say not normal people don't do stand-up. It's not normal to want to go in front of people you don't know, especially if they don't even want you there, and try to make them laugh. But I did it, and I got hooked. I mean, that laughter, I did, thank God, got laughs, and I was hooked, and I kept doing it, and you become addicted to stand-up, like that you want to go on stage as much as possible. And I found it healing. I found it starting to change my life, like my confidence, and I'm in sales too, on the side. I have to make money somehow.
But did it cure your stage fright of being a stand-up comedian?
People ask that, and I say no. I say now I'm just nervous all the time, because anytime I have a show coming up, I am like tense that whole week. I just never relax now.
So I would like to show a clip of some of your work before we continue with our conversation, because you have done a lot of work in commercials, and of course a very big volume of your work is out there.
Yes.
So let's watch a short video of your work.
Okay.
Netflix, right? Oh my God, I love my Netflix. It's addicting. I'm addicted. Like Netflix knows it's addicting. That's why they give you the first month for free. Right? Like a deal.
I understand you are an award-winning film producer, and your movie that's based on your life, Pretty Funny Nicole, is a movie that you co-produced, and it's a really fascinating movie. So tell us a little bit about that.
I was acting in one film that you also liked, that Hysteria, and the director, I asked her one day if we could meet for lunch, because I've been writing a book. All this story that we're going to be talking is just a summary of my book, because my life is pretty amazing, I guess. And so I told her I'm writing a book, and I asked her, why would you make a short film? I didn't know anything about it. And she told me you can win an Oscar, it can be picked up to make a feature film. And I said, I have a story. I'm writing a book. Would you be interested? I want you to look at it. And then she said, I see this. And she wrote me a treatment of an idea she had, and it combined my comedy and the story, and within months we were filming it. And this is all a lot of stuff even my best of friends didn't know about my life, and it's very it was very healing. It was very healing to say and purge some of these things that were from my past.
Was it at the same time nerve-wracking? Exposing your life in front of the world, basically telling everybody about things that are very personal. Was it like really? I would imagine scary.
To this day, I think I have moments like, "What am I doing? What did I do? Why?" And there were things. We hide things, or certain people that. I help with people. I help people now that have been victims or addictions, and I know and I understand about the shame that you hold. And I'd never realized I was never 100% honest until we were all cast. We were doing our table read-through at this talent agency. We were all having fun, and I was so excited. We're cast, we're going to sit and do the reading. The very beginning is comedy, and we're all sitting there laughing, the comic who opened up the film. And then came me doing a narration, because it's a short film, I had to do a lot of narrating. And as I read, by the second sentence, I choked, and I was almost shaking, and the room, I started sobbing. I'd never said these words out loud, and I talked about being a victim of abuse when I was younger, and it just, the girl next to me held my hand, and I plugged through it. But right then and there, these people, they were really more invested in the film. They knew this was real, and they were very, very supportive. So and it helped me free. We talk about just being free from that,
Did it bring some closure to you after you talked about it?
Yeah, a lot of healing. I recommend, that's why I try to get people to start talking. Before I even started the film, I started testing the waters. I would start telling people what my film's about. And I had women, 20 years older than me, crying, telling me stories they'd never said. And I went, oh my God, I have to do this. They live this long without saying anything, and it's just not right, because especially as I moved out here in October 2017 was the big Harvey Weinstein scandal. I moved out here, and that was my film was on the circuit winning awards about almost the same. There is a scene in the movie about the casting couch and how I lost my morals, and so it was just, the timing was incredible. Everybody started speaking up, and I just felt like I was helping contribute to people to just speak up, and can heal. It's not your fault. It's the moral of the movie. It wasn't your fault, you know.
Let's now watch a short trailer of your award-winning movie, Pretty Funny Nicole.
Carol Burnett once said, "Comedy is tragedy plus time." And I know that it's the things that we are most afraid of that are the things that will set us free. And that's why I'm doing this, is I'm finally free. Two things that I'm terrified of are sharing my darkest secrets in a screenplay and performing stand-up comedy. But if I'm trying this to help others, and if I can help someone, it's worth sharing my story.
So, tell us a little bit about your work in the movies and television.
I love it. We showed like a lot of commercials. I've done a lot of commercials. That's how I pay my bills. But I moved to LA because my stand-up and film and my acting, it was time to leave Michigan. There wasn't enough happening, and I'm here now working with one of the best acting coaches in Hollywood, and we'll see what happens, hoping for bigger things.
So what is your current project or future projects that you're working on now?
Oh, so many. We are working on Pretty Funny Nicole, the feature film. So somebody's working on the treatment, so we'll create more interest with that. And I guess, I don't know, I told you I'm new at being more of the filmmaker side. It's very different than the short. The short, we won LA Short Film Festival. We won Hollywood's Best Comedy. And we're actually in some that are coming up right now, so I'm excited. And the feature, because I just had a meeting in Hollywood with the director, and next step is feature film. I'm also working on finishing this book that I keep talking about, and it's just so hard. I got to get the book done. That's a priority. And stand-up. I'm at the Comedy Store, and it's a lot to be focusing on.
Yeah, you have a lot of things. Actually, the movie history, I would like to show a clip of that movie that you won an award for.
I was nominated
for that.
Best Supporting Actress. Yeah, that was a great dramatic role for me.
Besides all of that, you're a very accomplished actress and comedian, and you've done a lot of work, and you have won awards. And one side of your story is, and you touched upon that, that you're a victim of abuse, and you get a lot of your inspiration from addressing that part, that difficult part of your life. And we would like to ask you to share with us what brought you or what made you convert to Islam. And there are lots of questions, and you have a very fascinating story to tell.
Yeah.
We're now coming up on a break in our program, so please keep watching. We will be right back. Welcome back. We are talking to our special guest, Nicole Majdali, and She's an award-winning film producer, a stand-up comedian, an actress in television and movie, a very accomplished, actress, and has done a lot of work for TV commercials, and writer. So, Nicole, before we went on break, we were discussing, a tragic portion, a part of your life. I would like you to share with us, what you feel comfortable with, how you converted to Islam, what brought you to Islam.
Well, to make a really long story short, because I know of our time, when I was 15, I grew up here in Southern California. I got in trouble, and my parents were divorced, and my dad was, remarried, and he took me away from my mom. She couldn't handle me anymore. I was at this age. And while I was stuck at their house, I was bored. I was kind of starting this journey to find God, and a Jehovah's Witness came to the door, and I enjoyed talking to her. She gave me a Bible, and I started learning. And growing up in California, that was pretty much it. I was just always a Christian, I guess, I don't know. And I ended up going to Egypt that summer for vacation, like I had started doing yearly. And while I was there, I always say now, being in California, I had the stereotypical image of Muslims, and it's not even a consideration. I had a very weird thinking. And a woman was sharing with me, I was reading the Bible, and she was trying to share the Quran with me, and I just say, it was reading, and of course in English for me, but that was it. There was no question. It made sense, it just was it. And I actually converted at 15, and I dove into it. I stayed in Egypt. That was a whole big deal. And I covered everything. I jumped right into it, hardcore. But things were happening in Egypt that, not some bad things were happening too, so it was really making it hard for me to practice. And basically, when I got year, I was 18, and I was here visiting California. My family could tell I was just different, and I was in a really messed up place. And I had some families say they got it out of me, and they finally were like, "You can't go back. You can't go back." I told them what was happening. And so I stayed. I basically ran away, and I plunged into alcohol. I ended up going the whole opposite way. And
so you had converted to Islam, but then you went back and got into alcohol and all the other things that one would consider normal in Hollywood.
Yes, and I actually hit Hollywood, and I got into that scene, and then I eloped, moved to Michigan, and I just got in a whole nother scene, and as I call it, exactly the wrong path. And one thing after another, just my life was just crumbling. And I was arrested more than once, and I basically, what some people say, hit rock bottom. But I didn't stop drinking, but the courts intervened. Like, people don't believe this about me. They see me as so put together, and that's what I share with people. That's what my book's about, is I wasn't always together. I was the worst mess, because in my heart, I knew I was wrong, but I felt very lost. And one of the stories I think I was sharing with you earlier was I was in Egypt. It was, I think, 27 years, maybe 30 years ago now, at Al-Azhar. And I recorded on a cassette this Friday prayer, and it was so beautiful. I still have this cassette. And even if I was drinking, or I would listen sometimes and just cry. And I'd save this tape, and I was just in this awful, awful place. And then another part of the story that comes up in the book and in the longer version of the film is I saw my love that I left in Egypt, on Facebook, and it made me broken even more, on my hands and knees crying. And I went, I want to pray, and I don't know how to pray. And that week, I say it was that week, I was driving home like I always did from yoga, and I saw a masjid, which I never noticed. And it said open house, June 12th. It was called Tawheed Center. I wrote it on my calendar. I was terrified, but I was like, you have to go. And I walk into this, I finally went, and I went to the open house, and this young boy, they were like, go in this room, and I said, no, I want to talk to somebody. And he was a young boy, and I was asking him all kinds of questions. They were just like trying to send me in the hall, and I was too nervous to go in the hall. And I said, where do the women pray? I want to go see a prayer room. And he's like, it's upstairs. And this kid didn't want to take me upstairs, and I finally made him. And while I was trying to ask questions, there was a woman sitting in there. And she finally went, I got this. And I went and I sat with her, and I told her a little bit of my story and how I was lost, and I started crying, and she's like, I got you. And turns out she was speaking at that event, and she was a very, very important person to have met. And I started slowly hanging around Muslims, but I was still heavily into drinking. And I was just like, I just want to pray. I didn't want to, change my life yet or anything. But it was June, Ramadan was August. So I started going to these convert classes, and everything was focused on Ramadan. I was like, oh, I can't do that. And I just want to pray, once or twice or something. And then I was in this wonderful class for converts, and all the beauty hit me. I was remembering the beauty of Ramadan. So I was like, I'm going to do this. And I turned to some girls. I said, I'm going to fast. How do I help me? I didn't know what to do. And so they helped me. And that Ramadan, I fasted. And long story short, never touched a drink again. And I just never turned back.
You were brought up a Christian, and you grew up in California most of your life, and you spent a few years in, 3 years in Egypt.
Mm-hmm.
But what made you, think of Islam, rather than seeking refuge in Christianity?
Mm-hmm. Well, that time in Egypt when the woman was reading Quran, I think once you read it to me, that was like, everything makes sense in the religion. I love, it's just, I don't want to say easy, but it just makes sense. Everything I have no questions,
So how has your experience been as a Muslim in Hollywood?
It's challenging. I still think, because I didn't really grow up around it, I'm not always comfortable telling people. Not everybody knows. I keep it as a personal thing. Maybe because I'm afraid of the judgment that I had. I don't know. But I know it's probably a better time to talk about it because of I think people are more open-minded now. We're all uniting because of the difficult political situation we're in.
How has your experience been with the other Muslims? How are you, are you accepted by the other Muslims, or what's your experience?
Most part.
Is that right?
Yeah, most part. I'm a good judge of reading people, and but I found that I'm picky too. I've learned that there's a huge, I don't know. I think it works better for me. I think people get excited.
Nicole, as I understand, the tragedy that you suffered in your life eventually brought you to God, to Islam. What would you tell the others that are, that have suffered, similar experiences? They have been victim of abuse, and your life now, as I understand, is really about inspiring others, about helping others. So tell us what would your message be for others?
That's the book, the film is inspirational because people don't know how bad, and I get more into that. I know what it's like to be in the darkness, and anything can change. You can change. Sometimes you're around the wrong people. Sometimes, family's not always the best. I mean, just reach out, find the people that build you up, not take you down. But also, you're not alone, and there's hope. There's always hope, even if you don't see it. And victims, it's not your fault. I have so many messages, but I like to talk to people, and I always share my experience. But because I'm living happier and peaceful like I never dreamed, and that's what throws people. They just think, she doesn't know. What does she know? Everything's easy for her. I've had that said to me so many times, and no, nothing came easy for me. So you could be anything you want to be. Just pray. Just pray.
Thank you so much.
Thank
you for sharing your story with us. Ladies and gentlemen, you heard our conversation with Nicole Majdali. Hope you found her story inspirational. To learn more about her and her work, send us an email, and please send us your feedback, your comments. The address on your screen, please send us your comments and feedback at that address. For our previous episodes of our program, please visit pakistanlink.com/ARY. That's all the time we have. Thank you so much for watching. Khuda Hafiz.